Death at Daisy's Folly, Chapter 17. Love, pain, and money cannot be kept secret. They soon betray themselves. Spanish proverb. To know that one has a secret is to know half of the secret itself. Henry Ward Beecher. It was already lunchtime, and Winnie Wasbottle had not yet recovered her customary good humour, so sharp had been her disappointment of the evening before. Remembering Lawrence with pleasure from the dear old days in Brighton, she had fully expected him to accept her invitation to join her in the laundry room. With that expectation, she had arranged the cosy corner behind the hot water boiler with all the cave which a lady anticipating a clandestine visit from her lover might lavish on the boudoir. Winnie was a resourceful woman. When she first arrived at Easton, she had made it her business to learn what was available in the kitchens, pantries, closets, cupboards, still rooms, butteries, game larder, and wine cellar. In Winnie's considered opinion, this plenty was free for the taking, as long as she kept a vigilant eye out for Buffle, the house steward, who was reputed to glue pieces of felt on the soles of his shoes so that he might step noiselessly in the halls. Even when she had nothing special to celebrate, she regularly availed herself of the abundance just to keep in practice. On this occasion, Winnie had already flinched a dozen sprigs of hothouse stephanotis and some stems of fern from the fragrant vases in the pantry, standing ready to be distributed to the bedrooms upstairs. While Buffle was counting the plates, she purloined 2 crystal goblets from the sparkling rows arrayed on the shelves, reasoning rightly that with so many goblets displayed, 2 would not go amiss. And while the undercook was scolding the scullery maid for inattention to the floor, she made off with half a baked chicken, a plate of cucumber sandwiches, and a dish of crystallized fruit. A bottle of fine French wine from the cellar completed her acquisitions. The plunder safely transported to the ironing room, Winnie hung a sheet behind the boiler to screen off the corner, draped a board with the lace tablecloth, and centered it with the flowers and a pair of candles, and fluffed up the down pillows that made a soft, warm bed behind the hot water boiler. Surveying her seraglio, she was entirely pleased. Full of warm anticipation, she went off to her attic bedroom to ready herself for an evening of revel in the servants' hall. The festive evening, however, had come to a fruitless and bitter conclusion. The fickle Lawrence danced but once with her, and was then lured away by a brazen young girl named Amelia, lady's maid to the red-haired American woman, who seemed to think she had some sort of claim on his affections. And even though Winnie went alone to the ironing room and comforted herself with the wine, baked chicken, cucumber sandwiches, and candied fruit all she earned, thereby was a headache and a bellyache, causing her to miss breakfast and further adding to her surliness. By lunchtime, working like fury, she had overseen the washing and hanging of a dozen baskets of towels and linens, and had personally fed 2 dozen sheep through the mangle, which she did not trust to the maids to operate. She was hot and cross, and the discovery that she was to be in the second shift at table, there being too many servants, seat all at once, destroyed what remained of her disposition. By the time she sat down to lunch and heard about Lord Wallace's death and the Prince's command to cooperate with the investigators he had appointed, she was in a fine stew. "What's wrong with the constable, I wants to know?" she demanded truculently. "Why has he got to have some high-toned knob asking us questions?" "You won't be answering to a knob, Win," said Wicket, the bandy-legged coachman. He grinned mischievously. "A lady's knob is who you gets to talk to." "Not that neither," said Marjorie, an iron-faced undercook whose reputation for temper was second to none, not even to that of Winnie herself. She added in an acid tone, "'Tis the red-haired American woman. She's already hard at it in the morning room. At lunch, the upstairs maids are to line up 6 at a time as they're called. She'll call for us later." "The American?" Winnie asked, affronted and dumbly amazed. "Why, she's not even a lady. She's no rank whatsoever." "Oh, aye," said Marjorie, becoming increasingly inflamed. She jerked a stained and calloused thumb in the direction of Amelia, who was seated a little way down table next to Lawrence. Miss." Winnie's amazement now turned to disgust. She glared at Amelia. "Be careful what you're saying, then," she said to Marjorie, and added with the force of inspiration, "I don't doubt she's a spy." Wicket leaned over to look down table. A spy? She asked incredulously. Why, she's just a little thing no bigger than a mite. Pretty true, if you ask my opinion. Marjorie's fancy had been tweaked by Winnie's assertion, and she curled her lip at Wicket. Pretty she may be, but she's certainly a spy, she said with conviction. A spy for her mistress is what she is. I read about spies in a story once. They listen to secrets, then run upstairs and snitch it to their mistress. She raised herself to the wooden bench in order to get a look at Lawrence. You suppose he's another one? She asked in a shrill stage whisper. Now, I wouldn't doubt that, Wicket growled vindictively. He had lost a bob to Lawrence that morning when the Daimler had completed the round trip to Chelmsford in something under 2 hours and 30 minutes, and he was still smarting. Look at his eyes, shifty like, wouldn't you say? Foxy eyes, Winnie agreed. She raised her voice so it could be heard at the length of the table. Watch your tongues, there's spies among us. Don't tell no secrets. A sudden hush fell over the table, as all eyes turned questioningly to Winnie. Peyton, the bootblack, who was reputed to have a level head, looked up with a frown. Shouldn't think we'd have a spy here, he said mildly. Who do you mean? Winnie might have spoken, but Marjorie, whose excitement had been growing by the moment, jumped to her feet. "'Tis them!" she cried, pointing her knife at Lawrence and Amelia. "Them two, spies!" Amelia looked one way then another, confused. "Spies?" she cried, her hand going over her mouth. "Oh, no!" "Spies," Lawrence demanded. He stood up, leaning on his hands, palms down, his head wagging like an angry bull. "Who says we're spies?" "Us says." Marjorie had mounted the bench aflame with the fine fire of righteous indignation. She shook her fist. We won't have none of it, you hear? You ain't going to shut us up. We'll have no spies telling our secrets." Marjorie's rallying cry was followed by a rousing cheer from the length of the table. Several, carried away by the passion of the moment, began to stamp their feet and beat with their spoon on their plates. "No spies! No spies!" The hallway door banged open and Buffle strode into the room. "Here now," he cried, clapping his hands sharply. "What's all this noise? Finish your meal and get back to the work, you lot of you. For shame! Who do you think you are, anyway? Ruffians and rowdies?" He passed through the room, favouring those nearest him with a dark scowl, went out the other door and slammed it behind him. Some may have been ashamed at having been thus caught out by the steward, but neither Winnie nor Marjorie were among them. Winnie fixed her eyes vindictively on Amelia, who by now was red as a flannel petticoat and close to tears. "Spy!" she hissed under her breath. "Spy!" echoed Marjorie. Amelia went from red to white, put her apron to her eyes and began to sob softly. "That's enough," Lawrence gritted and took her by the arm. "Come on," he said, getting up and clambering over the bench. "We're leaving." "Happy riddance," Marjorie exclaimed. Winnie sat back and took a deep breath. Her good humour had been restored. In an open pantry in the deserted back hallway, Amelia, still sobbing, allowed herself to be comforted by Lawrence. "I'm sure they didn't mean nothing by it," he said, patting her shoulder with an awkward solicitude. "They was just teasing us." "When you Washbottle wasn't teasing," Amelia said, wiping her eyes with the corner of her apron. "She was the one who started it." Amelia felt herself genuinely embarrassed and hurt what had transpired in the servants' hall. But she was also not above exploiting the situation for all it was worth, and in her mind it promised to be worth a good deal. She gave another sob and put down her apron to her eyes again. "Who cares about her old secrets anyway? She can keep 'em for all of me." Lawrence, to give him due credit, looked utterly wretched. "She's just jealous is all," he muttered. "She and me, us to go around together back in Brighton. He straightened with a look of determination. "But that was before," he said emphatically. "A long while before. I washed my hands o'er her then, and I wash my hands o'er her now." Amelia looked up at him through tear-wet lashes. "It's over then?" she asked him with pretty hesitation. "You're certain?" "It's over," Lawrence said firmly. "You've got nothing to fear." He put his finger on Amelia's chin and tilted it, gazing earnestly into her eyes. "I'm yours, Amelia. All yours. Or heart, soul, and body. I want nobody but you." "Oh, Lawrence," Amelia sighed, her own heart near bursting. She could have borne any kind of taunt or teasing from any number of Marjories and Winnies to hear Lawrence speak these words, but she longed to hear more. She pressed her advantage. "I only wish," she began tremblingly. "I mean, dear, if we feel this way, why can't we?" Lawrence bit his lip. You know how it is with me, Amelia, he said unhappily. I want to get on in this world. I want the young Lord Marston promised to help me learn mechanic motor cars. It's not right to... But I can help you get on, Amelia cried, pleading. I can ask Lady Marston for a place, don't you see? I'm sure Miss Ardley will give me a good character, and we can be married and I'll work and we'll save every penny toward my mechanic shop. She twined her slender arms around Lawrence's neck. Oh, Lawrence, let's... she whispered passionately into his chest. Lawrence's arms came around her, and he brought his lips to hers with fervent longing. Amelia might have achieved her fondest wish on the spot if it had not been for the interruption. In the hall outside the open pantry door there were voices. Lawrence dropped his arms and stepped back as Amelia wiped her mouth and straightened her cap. Peering round the doorframe with some fear that they might have been overheard, she recognized Meg, the housemaid whose bed she was sharing for the weekend, and the footman Marsh, to whom Meg was promised. The pair had apparently been quarrelling with some heat, but they carried their controversy down the hallway with them. "Scupper that," Marsh was saying in a low, furious voice. "You shouldn't have been talking with him, and that's all I tell you, Meg. He was trying to weasel secrets out of you." "But he wasn't no weasel," Meg said with a tearful breathlessness, taking several small hurrying steps to keep up with the other's strides. "And anyway, I was careful. I didn't say nothing about the letter you... "Hush!" Marsh was fierce. "Never mention that name, you hear? If anybody finds out about him, our goose is cooked. Now get on your lunch and eat like nothing's the matter." "Will I see you tonight?" Meg whispered, imploring. "Are you packed to go with me?" Her voice grew desperate. "I can't go with ye, Marsh. Dad's sick. He needs me. How can I leave him?" "Oh, indeed," Marsh asked and stalked off. For a moment Amelia heard nothing but Meg's weeping. She moved to go to her, but Lawrence took her arm. "No," he said in a hoarse whisper. "She'll think we've been spying on him. Snooping on secrets." Spying? Amelia was suddenly seized with the hysterical desire to laugh.